What if I told you that the United States in 2025 still echoes the same racist voices we heard in 1960?
Every time we ask you for something, you give us a little bit of something, and it's all tokenism. We don't want tokenism. Please, you're playing games with us. We're not children.
I'm sorry, if I see a black pilot, I'm gonna be like, boy, I hope he's qualified.
Black people are only 13% of the population, yet they commit 55% of the murders.
More than 100 years after slavery ended, decades after Martin Luther King Jr. marched for equality, here we are again. The same ideas, the same insecurity, the same dangerous belief that whiteness is superior. We thought racism was buried with Jim Crow, but was it? Or has it been hiding, waiting for voices like Kirk's to bring it back? Tonight, we are not just telling history, we are proving it with evidence, with documents, and with the words of those who lived it. And by the end, you will see clearly, racism is not about black people being criminals. It is about white supremacy refusing to die. The story of race in America does not begin in the 20th century. It begins centuries earlier, when the land we now call the United States was already home to millions of indigenous people. The Cherokee, the Lakota, the Navajo, the Creek, and hundreds of other nations had cultures, languages, and civilizations stretching back thousands of years. Then came the Europeans, the Spanish, the English, the French, the Dutch. They arrived with muskets and flags and declared ownership over lands that were never theirs. They introduced diseases that wiped out entire villages. And with colonization came the greatest theft of all, the theft of human beings. In 1619, the first African slaves arrived in Virginia, torn from their homes across the Atlantic, branded as property, stripped of their languages and their names. Within 2 centuries, slavery became the very backbone of the American economy. Cotton, tobacco, rice, and sugar made fortunes for white landowners, while millions of black men, women, and children labored in chains. As historian Ira Berlin has written, slavery was not a sideshow to American history. It was the main event. By 1860, nearly 4 million enslaved Africans and their descendants lived in the United States. Their sweat built the White House. Their labor made Wall Street possible. Their lives were traded like cattle, and yet they were called criminals simply for resisting their condition. At the same time, America's leaders proclaimed themselves champions of liberty. The Declaration of Independence declared that all men are created equal, but Thomas Jefferson, its author, enslaved over 600 people during his lifetime. George Washington, celebrated as the father of the nation, kept men and women in chains at Mount Vernon. The very foundation of the United States was built on contradiction. Freedom for whites, bondage for blacks, and for Native Americans, there was another fate: slaughter and forced removal. The Trail of Tears, the forced relocation of the Cherokee and other tribes in the 1830s, killed thousands. Entire nations were pushed off their ancestral homelands to clear the way for white settlers. For both the black and the red, whiteness was declared supreme, and everyone else was forced to pay the price. The Civil War ended in 1865, and with it came the 13th Amendment, which supposedly abolished slavery. The amendment reads, "Neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as a punishment for crime, shall exist within the United States." Once arrested, they were sent to chain gangs, leased to private companies, and forced to work in railroads, mines, and plantations. Historian Douglas Blackman has called this system slavery by another name. The myth that black people were inherently criminal did not emerge naturally. It was manufactured, deliberately designed to justify their continued exploitation after emancipation. When Charlie Kirk and others today repeat the claim that blacks commit more crime, they are echoing propaganda created in the 19th century. After the Reconstruction period collapsed in the late 1870s, white supremacy reasserted itself through Jim Crow laws. For nearly a century, from the end of Reconstruction to the Civil Rights Movement, racial segregation was the law of the land in the South and practiced across much of the North. Schools, buses, neighborhoods, hospitals, even water fountains were divided by race. Black citizens were denied the right to vote through poll taxes, literacy tests, and intimidation. In 1896, the Supreme Court case, Plessy v. Ferguson, enshrined the doctrine of separate but equal. Justice Henry Billings Brown wrote, "If one race be inferior to another socially, the Constitution of the United States cannot put them upon the same plane." This was not fringe extremism. It was mainstream American society. It was white supremacy written into law, reinforced by violence, and passed down through generations.